3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Nittany No Huddle Podcast.
From Philadelphia to Los Angeles
And everywhere in between.
filmed at the Nittany No Huddle studio.
It's Jordo, Zach, and Coach Devin covering all things Penn State football all the time.
This is from 45 and it's blocked. Lions scoop it up. Brad Haley will score.
And here we go.
All right, welcome back, Nittany No Huddle Nation. Today's video, we're going to be covering the preview for Minnesota as well as our pick'ems for this week. This is week 8 college football, right?
Technically.
Week 8.
Depends if you count week 0 or 1.
So it's either 8 or 9. Is that the?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going with week 8. Week 0 doesn't count. So we're going to be covering the Minnesota preview. So we'll get right into it. We're going to change it up this week, go kind of with a more broader format. So we're going to get right into it. Minnesota offense versus the Penn State defense. So I'll start it off. Minnesota's quarterback, Tanner Morgan. We're not sure if he's going to start yet. If he does start, this will be his 46th start. So somebody who has more starts than Clifford. So for all you haters out there, we could have 45 starts versus 40 starts for Clifford. So, and if Clifford stays healthy every game, he'd have more, but he doesn't because he gets hurt all the time. So, and he might not start this week. We don't know yet. TBD. So it could be Clifford versus Morgan or Aller versus Kalik Manis is their backup. So I haven't seen either injury report. I don't know if you guys have on either quarterback. I know Franklin probably won't talk it. So
The last report I saw on twincities.com, the newspaper out there, said that they are anticipating Morgan to play. The trainer saw him on Sunday and he improved a lot. I'm sure tomorrow, I think Flex conferences or his press conference is on Tuesday, so I'm sure he'll address it tomorrow. The other interesting thing there, and before I throw it to Zach, Kalik Kamanis, however you say his name, redshirt freshman, he's actually third string on the depth chart because the backup is also injured right now.
Classic.
So it sounds like they have no idea who could start. It sounds like Kramer, the backup, could be back this week. It seemed like, from what I read on that report, it seemed like it was one of those situations where Kramer could have possibly played, but it wasn't worth it in that moment to re-injure anything. So that's why they went with the freshman, but it's up in the air. I think any of the three could really start. I expect Tanner Morgan to start, but I think any of them could.
But we could see Cosmo Kramer out there.
Could see Cosmo Kramer. Yes.
Shout out to all my Seinfeld friends out there. So, yeah. Zach, did you see anything different than what our on the ground reporters reporting?
No, I think Devin covered it. I haven't seen anything different. For me, this feels like a great opportunity for vindication for Penn State because I think Minnesota's going to come out and try to do the same exact thing that Michigan did, right? And that's even before getting the game film of us versus Michigan. If you just look at Minnesota and what they've tried to do this year, obviously everybody knows Mohamed Ibrahim. He's had a great year, probably one of the best backs in college football. 104 carries through 6 games, and actually he didn't play in the Purdue game. So, he's averaging basically like 20 yards or 20 carries a game, almost 700 yards, 9 touchdowns, averaging 6.7 a pop. That's great, right? Okay, then you go to the second guy, Trey Potts. He's got 62 carries for 300 yards. He's averaging 5 yards a carry. That's great too. Okay, you go to the third guy, Bryce Williams. He's got 33 carries, not a ton of carries, but that's pretty good for your third back. And he's rushed for 195 yards and he's getting 5.9 a carry. So it's been one of those things where even with the game Ibrahim was out, they have guys that are in doing a pretty serviceable job. So, they're committed to the run. As far as, parlaying that run game success, I look at Something that we talked about a lot actually for the last Penn State game. Minnesota is 47 of 71 on third down this year for a 66% rate on third down, which is just nuts.
Yeah.
Again, part of that is they played a really, really bad non-conference schedule. But still, that tells you that they're getting themselves into third and manageable because their pass game hasn't been great. So that tells you if you're getting into 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1 with Minnesota all game long, they're going to get theirs, right? They're going to be tough to get off the field if you can't get them off schedule. Conversely, Morgan hasn't been bad, we'll say, but Minnesota has 7 interceptions in the pass game, and they have 5. Well, they have 7 total interceptions if you count Kaliak Manis. But Chris Ottman-Bell, who was definitely their number 1 receiver coming into the season, got injured in maybe the 3rd or 4th game, and he's been out. And so they've got Michael Brown-Stephens, who I think now is their new number 1. He's got 15 catches for 233 yards. But their number 1 pass catcher so far has been their tight end at 18 and 252. So it's one of those games where, just like we kind of said going into Michigan, like let's kind of load the box, see if we think our corners are as good as we think they are, and just see what the quarterback can do. And that's whether Tanner Morgan's in there or not. I think that has to be the game plan. It's one of those things, the way you got beat up at Michigan, you have to show up and say, we are going to stop the run. I don't care if we have to load the box and play cover 0 all game. We are not letting somebody do that to us again. That just has to be the game plan.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And speaking of Ibrahim, his this is a crazy stat line. In games that he's played, because he's actually missed 13 games in the last 2 years, he's had, in games that he started and played, he's had 14 consecutive 100-yard games.
Wow. It's impressive.
In that time span, Penn State has had 1 rusher with 100 yards in a game.
Yeah. That is a crazy stat line, though. So something to be cautious of, and maybe we can see, maybe Penn State's D is that good to stop his streak. So
Jordan to build on that too. Zach said that Mohamed Ibrahim didn't play against Purdue. As a team, Minnesota only rushed for 44 yards in that game. They averaged 1.6 yards per carry. Obviously, Zach mentioned that they started with 3 pretty bad teams. Then they went to Michigan State and just annihilated them. But the last 2 games, Purdue and Illinois, they're only rushing for 186 yards in those 2 games. Both Purdue and Illinois, to Zach's point, kind of got them off schedule, and they haven't been as successful. Purdue, obviously, I think that game's a totally different game if Ibrahim plays. But then to respond at Illinois and still have not quite as much success as they are used to with running the ball. I think, like you said, Zach, they're going to come in, and it's going to be, how many times can we carry the ball today? Can we carry it 50 plus times or not?
How do you take the crowd out of the game? You run the ball.
Yep.
And if you remember in 2019, I actually think Jordan did a good job referencing the Tanner Morgan, Sean Clifford breakdown, and they actually both were the quarterback in 2019. So it's pretty rare to say these teams haven't matched up since 4 years ago, and both quarterbacks are back. But I think he's kind of like the spitting image.
2019 was 4 years ago.
Or 3 years ago. Yeah, 4 years ago. Yeah.
I'm saying that's like, that blew my mind.
and if you remember, Tanner Morgan was like otherworldly in that game. He was like 17 of 19 or something, but they ran the ball so well, and they just were like play action, and they killed us in the passing game. And he had a couple, to be fair. So Rashad Bateman, who is in the NFL, I think maybe plays for the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm trying to think who the other, Tyler Johnson, I think is also in the NFL. They had 2 really good receivers that year. But to me, Tanner Morgan is like Sean Clifford. You saw the last couple of weeks when teams stopped the run and they got off schedule. He has not looked very good, but he's had his moments where he's looked very good. And I think if you run the ball and you get him in play action and you get him in some sets where he's got 1 or 2 reads, he can be very good. So again, it just gets back to that: stop him on first down, force him into obvious passing downs. And I think you've got a passing game that is kind of ripe for the picking. But if you don't get to that point, you're gonna struggle, because if you don't stop the run, they're not going to abandon it. They will stick with it and they will keep running it, and they will have success running it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's going to be the big matchup: offense versus defense. Can we stop the run? And I mean, we've covered Penn State defense in depth over the last 6 weeks, so I really don't think we need to go into depth of the players and everything. It's going to come back to our linebacking play. Whenever you're talking about running backs, the line can only do so much. It's going to be down to those linebackers to, fill those gaps and that sort of thing. And maybe we did see it a little bit this last weekend. I don't think Tanner Morgan, he's not the fastest quarterback out there. So I don't think, compared to, JJ McCarthy from last week, I think we need to be aware of the run, but I don't think it's going to be a huge problem.
Especially if he is dinged up. He
Exactly.
probably won't be running as much, assuming he plays. And Jordan, before we move on, one thing I did want to say, obviously we love our linemen on this podcast. Their center is really good. I think it'll be interesting how we attack him, because their center is one of the better ones in the nation. I've seen him as first round projection. I think he'll end up going late, somewhere in the second. John Michael Schmitz, if you didn't know his name, and their right side of the line is where they run it a lot. Both are grad transfers that are new to Minnesota. They're very experienced. So they run it to the right a lot. And it'll be interesting to see how Penn State plans for that.
Especially with Mustafar, who's usually, if you're on the offense, the left side. So be interesting to see how that plays out. Yeah, all good stuff there. Move on. So Minnesota defense versus Penn State offense. I guess the big question mark is who's starting at quarterback. Like we covered in our last episode, we don't know. And as of the time we're recording, we don't know the quarterback situation right now. Is Clifford actually hurt? Are they just going to go with Aller because, they listen to Coach Devin and they think it's time to flip the switch? I think that's the big question. I really think, as much as I want us to run the ball, I think we really need to do a better job of getting our wide receivers involved. And I think this could be a big game for them to maybe turn the page and solidify themselves as, hey, we are a good wide receiving core. We can get it done if the running game gets stopped. So what do you guys think on Penn State offense versus the Minnesota Golden Gopher defense?
Do you want to go, Zach?
I go
Zach,
for
you
it.
can start it off.
Sure. Okay. Well, I think Jordan made an interesting point there. Something I talked about immediately after the Michigan game was, I feel like I love committing to the run game as much as the next guy. I'd love to. Jordan's played me in NCAA 14 and Madden, where I'll just run the ball every play. If you can do it, you run the ball, and then you sneak in some play action. But I think Penn State's got to be cognizant of it. Some days we just don't have it, and your plays are precious, your possessions are precious, especially in that Michigan game. You saw you need to help your defense out, and there's no you don't get any honor for running the ball 3 times and getting nothing and then punting, right? And I'm not saying just abandon the run game, but I want to see a little bit more downfield shots on first down. I think for me is, and it doesn't have to be every possession, but maybe come out early and take some shots, make them think about something else on first down, because it just seems like in that Michigan game, we got really stale and we got really predictable. And some teams are good enough, like Michigan. They were pretty predictable. You knew what they were going to do. They did it, and they continued to do it. And if you're good enough to do that, great. But if you're struggling the way Penn State's offense is struggling right now, I don't think we can afford to be predictable. I think you got to mix it up. Whether that's downfield shots or whether that's halfback screens, trying to get Singleton out in space, or making an intentional effort to get the tight ends involved, because that was something that we just, Brenton Strange had kind of been our secret weapon all along going into the Michigan game, and just felt like we didn't really try to dial anything up for Strange. Or Theo Johnson's one, where we talked about him at the beginning of the season, really hoped that he would kind of blossom into an elite pass catching tight end.
And he's had 2 catches.
It just hasn't happened. And I think part of it is his value in the run game isn't there compared to Strange and Warren. And so he's just not getting on the field. And I don't know why that is. And I just think tight ends are one of those positions where, as an offensive coordinator, as a play caller, Yurcich needs to, you've got to go out of your way to make sure you're getting them involved, because they're not going to just kind of naturally get involved if you're not.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, with the tight ends too, like I love being run heavy first. I mean, nobody else loves doing that more than I think probably this podcast. But I think it's time where it's like, okay, we're not, maybe we're not that good at running first all the time. And we really need to get the tight ends involved. I feel like we don't ever run these and maybe we're just not getting open and maybe it's scheme, but I feel like we don't run to the first down and then get open. It's always like these little passes on the side, or it's a shot that's like 10, 15 yards, but it's towards the sideline. Like, I feel like the middle of the field is not where we're successful, where we should be, because we have the athletes that when they catch, like we have some great guys who, when they catch the ball, can get out in space, but I feel like we never pass them into space, if that makes sense. Devin, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it'd be great to see them be more utilized. And like Zach said, he said it the last couple of podcasts, we just don't have that receiver that's going to scare anybody. So I think we have at least two really solid tight ends that could scare some people. Brenton Strange has proved that he is a very valuable weapon for the Penn State offense. And the last couple of weeks, we haven't really used him as much as maybe we should. I think, like you said, Jordan, I think that there's a lot of scheme things that are really concerning to me with our pass play. As much as we think it was terrible at the time, like I'm at a point where I'd rather see them run 2 tunnel screens and then tunnel screen
don't say that.
and then send somebody deep, because at least then we're taking a shot. I mean,
Yeah.
at least you knew with that offense, we're gonna go tunnel screen, tunnel screen,
Pump
tunnel
fake
screen
tunnel
shot.
screen deep.
Yeah, like I mean, and it had moderate success at times depending on who you were playing. But I mean, both of you have said this repeatedly, like we don't take shots. And if we do take shots, it's not always it's like at bad times. Like
Yeah.
why are we taking a shot in this situation? The one thing I will say is I think Minnesota has 2 really good safeties. I think they're both really solid. So to Jordan's point about using the middle of the field, I don't know if this is that game where we use the middle of the field, because you look at the tape from the games that Minnesota has played, and their opponents have been really successful passing the ball. Even Michigan State was successful passing the ball. They just could not run the ball, which could be a Penn State issue on Saturday. Purdue, obviously, we know what Purdue can do. Illinois passed the ball incredibly effective, 78% completion percentage against them. I don't know if the middle of the field is where we're going to be at our best this week, because I think Newbin and the other safety, what's his name? Howden. I think they're both really solid. So I'm not sure if I'm talking in circles, but we need to take shots, but we need to be strategic with them and where we take them, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
And I think part of the problem with the middle of the field too is, and again, we've played 6 games, so let's not maybe focus all of our energy onto the Michigan game, but that's an example where if a team can just
that was
bring,
our first real game, so
right, but if a team, yeah, exactly, and if a team can just bring 4 and sit back in zone or play man and with some zone, too high safety over the top, it's kind of easy to take the middle of the field away, right? Because it's obvious passing downs, they don't have to send extra blitzers to get home. And so they can kind of take away the easy stuff. And so that's where, again, being able to run the ball, being able to take shots, all of that stuff kind of goes hand in hand to open things up. But I just feel like there's got to be ways to scheme. And honestly, we saw it. Like we saw it, especially in the Purdue game. I think back to some of our cleanest, we didn't run the ball well, but some of our cleanest passing game in terms of efficiency was in the Purdue game. That last drive especially was just formationally, I felt like we were doing stuff that we've gotten away from. The Michigan game from a formation standpoint, I feel like, and again, we went back and watched some film obviously, but we're not sitting here dialing stuff up, but there wasn't the sort of bunch formations and the tight end movement in the backfield that we've seen a lot of, especially in that early in that Purdue or late in that Purdue game, I should say. So something to think about. Maybe if you're Yurcich, do you use formations to get guys in space, or to get the tight ends involved? I'm thinking specifically of like the bunch wide formation where we send 3 guys to the boundary and the tight end is like the lead blocker. And if they don't go out there and get enough numbers, you just throw it out to the receiver really quick and you get some kind of easy yards that way. And then that's when you hit if you can recall the tight end to Warren on the second to last play of the Purdue game-winning drive, they did the fake bunch screen to Warren, or the fake bunch screen. Warren fake blocked and then was wide open cutting across the middle of the field. So just stuff like that. We'll see if they can maybe get back to some of the stuff they had success with earlier.
Yeah, one thing here too, Zach, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like we haven't used like motion at all the last couple of games, and we talked after Purdue, after Auburn, whenever Clifford played his 2 best games of the season, especially Auburn played really well. When we use motion, it gives Clifford that 1 second to figure out what defense they're in. Are they in zone? Are they in man? Are they in are they bringing pressure from an outside backer, from a corner? Like, where's the pressure coming from? And I rewatching that Michigan game, I did not see us utilize sending guys in motion. It was, we're in this formation and that's what we're in. And as a defense, you have to be like, oh, this is great. I mean, I already know exactly what they're doing.
They were in motion so much.
Yeah. So I think that's a good point that you brought up, Zach, about getting away from things that we had success with against in our best games of the season so far. And can we get back to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think every once in a while, I mean, I love motion. The point you just raised, especially at the college level, where you're not that the players aren't quite to the level of like the NFL where they're really hiding their coverages. Oftentimes you see immediately if it's man or zone just with motion. But I think also you gotta every once in a while that motion has to be the action. Because if you don't give that guy the ball every once in a while, then the defense isn't really following with it. I think like Singleton's a good example where, put him in the slot, run that jet sweep motion a couple times, and then give it to him once, right? And that's an easy way to run basically a sweep to the outside. Just little things like that, to try to mix it up and try to break tendencies. Because I feel like when we have run motion, it isn't really with the intent of scaring anyone into thinking that the motion is the action that's going to happen. Right. But, we'll see.
I mean, even something simple like just flipping the tight end to the other side, like just to make the defense reconsider for a tenth of a second. Wait, what is this formation that like recalling their scout reports and all the film that they spend time watching, like even just something so simple as lining the tight end up on the right side and flipping him to the left. Like I totally agree with you though. Like we need to get Singleton in space is what everyone keeps saying. Can we do stuff like that? Can we run jet sweeps with him from the slot? Can we start him at tailback, motion him out to a slot receiver, run something out of that? Like, can we just be semi-creative with our matchups and how to create better matchups for us?
Yeah, I agree. I will say, I just wanted to go back. I know you were talking about Brenton Strange possibly being, that, I forget the terminology used, that scary deep threat. Yeah. I think the only person he's scaring is the medical staff when he does those hurdles.
Yeah, probably. Good point.
I had that joke in the pocket for like 10 minutes and I was trying not to forget
You haven't heard a word we've said. You've just been
No.
repeating it so you didn't forget it.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. I have it written down. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's all we really need to cover with Minnesota.
Yeah.
I think our instant reactions, we do a great job of kind of breaking down the game. So, I mean, we've talked in depth on this Penn State team for 6 weeks now. Like, I'm sure our fans are like sick of us going through with emotions of, the full breakdown. So we'll move on to our favorite part of the segment here.
We'll go first.
Top tens. Top 10. So I think we'll let Devin go top 10 first. So he can't say that I stole his top 25, even though I sent it in first this week.
I was just gonna say Jordan really wanted to be first since I called him out last week. So he sent it at like 12:15 a.m. I don't even think all the games were over yet, and he's sending his top 25.
Oh, I did it after Pac-12 after dark.
Oh yeah, I was in bed. I didn't watch Pac-12. I fell asleep at halftime of Pac-12 after dark, but
No, I did it.
which I
literally-
missed one hell of a game, didn't I? That was a
That was
great
a
game.
Great game.
Yeah, but so I also think Jordan wants me to go first because apparently I have the hottest of takes because I have
Despicable.
number one. I have Ohio State.
Unreal.
I had Ohio State last week. They had a bye week. They did not look bad on their bye week. I think they performed up to
Their opponents who they played look bad.
I mean, yes, they've played some bad teams, but they are destroying them. And I just think that in the long run, Ohio State is going to go undefeated. So I didn't have any reason to move them from number one, in my opinion. I did move Michigan up to number two. I just complete domination. I think that was very impressive the way that they controlled the game. And how cool would that be if Ohio State Michigan was 1 versus 2 in the game? That'd be pretty awesome. 3, I moved up Tennessee. I called them a fraud last week, so I ate some crow after Saturday night. Hendon Hooker is legit. That wide receiver that had 5 touchdowns is legit. I'm worried about their defense, but Bryce Young's pretty freaking good too. So I don't know how much stock to put in the fact that they gave up 49 points.
Them
Georgia,
throwing the goalpost in the river was
Yeah.
legit.
maybe they need some new goalposts, which is pretty cool. I always love that.
They started a GoFundMe for their goalpost. Did I tell you that?
I did see that. I figured you probably donated. You love Knoxville.
Hell yeah.
That's because they're still paying buyouts in the last 3 coaches that they fired. They don't have
Well,
the money
and
for
the
both
one
those.
coach that didn't even get the coach.
Yeah. Oh my. Anyway, so 4, I have Georgia. I don't really know anymore. 5, I have Clemson. They looked really good for about 2.5 quarters, and then it's kind of slowed down a little bit and almost let Florida State come back to win that game. So I'm not sure about them, but they're taking care of business. They've beaten, I think, Florida State, NC State with the quarterback who has the same name as me, and Wake are all solid teams. So I think that they've enough to be up there. 6 UCLA, 7 TCU, pretty impressive in their win. Really gritty to come from behind. I thought Oklahoma State looked really solid too. So
They had
super
that
gritty.
game too. They had
Yeah,
that.
I mean Oklahoma State kind of coughed that one up, but TCU really gritty for them to win that game. 8 Ole Miss. I don't even know anymore about them. Whatever.
Nobody knows about Ole Miss. I don't even think Ole Miss.
Until they play Bama this week, or no, that's what next week is. Next week,
They got
Bama
'em
miss
for-
or
It's either next week or the following week.
it's coming up.
Wrong
Then we'll
Mississippi.
kind of know. Syracuse, another basketball school. Number 9, I saw a game in the Carrier Dome, which was don't do it. I don't recommend it. It's really weird to watch a basketball game in the Carrier Dome, but I think it's awesome that Syracuse is undefeated. I have a feeling they're going to go the Kansas route and kind of choke the rest of the season, lose to Clemson this week and just drop. But I don't know. I hope not because it's cool. And then Alabama at 10. I still think Alabama's good.
They just
Bryce
struggle
Young can
against
play.
teams with T's.
Yeah, they just can't play anybody with T, and I don't think they have any more on the schedule. So
There it is.
there it is.
I'll get
Hot takes, apparently.
Scorchers.
The fans really should just see our group chat of Jordan just going so hard on me
I was
for having
so
Ohio State at number 1 whenever they are like, and Michigan. I think that was the one that really got me mad, was how mad you were that I had Michigan at number 2. Like, why were they not number 1? So screw you,
Well, why weren't they?
because I think Ohio State's better.
Because Notre Dame's a better win than Penn State.
Maybe.
It's the
All right.
collective body.
So that's stupid.
You're stupid.
And I don't respect it. All right. Number 1, easily Michigan. Number 2, Tennessee.
Easily.
They took care of a trash Alabama team, but they still did it. The refs even
The trash that you moved them up to 2.
Yep. 3, Ohio State.
So we have the same top 3.
Yeah, of course. And then 4, Georgia. So I think we have the same top 4. 5, I'm going with our new Big Ten team, UCLA. They're the real reason that we went out to the Pac-12 to get a team. So basically get a home game out on the West Coast every year. So I'm cool with that. I do think UCLA they might be legit, to be honest. I know I'm going to get flack because they almost lose to Southern Alabama or something. I don't know.
32-31.
Yeah, but they have not looked bad since then. I will say that, in my opinion. So 6, going Horned Frogs, TCU. They beat Oklahoma State, who I thought was very good. So I have TCU at 6. 7, Clemson. 8, who else but Ole Miss? Like, where else do you put them? I don't know. Somewhere
I'm going
between
7 and
6
8.
and 10, I guess. And maybe this is just a ranking of cool uniforms, because that's kind of what it looks like right now, to be honest.
Except for
9,
TCU. Those were gross.
yeah, this week's were, but
They were terrible.
those Rose Bowl edition helmets TCU had a couple years ago, where the frog had the
Agreed.
rose in the mouth with the purple.
Yeah, that was cool.
Those were dope. So 9, I got Syracuse, I guess, for now. I don't know. I mean they're winning and they beat Purdue, so they probably wouldn't lose as bad as we did to Michigan. So and then 10, I got Utah back in the top 10. So
2
kind of
losses.
that might be a little shocker. 1 loss team, Utah in the top 10. So that's my top 10. Actually, pretty mild.
So we've got a lot of, all 3 of us have a lot of similarities. We all have Georgia at 4. We have the same top 3 teams at just different orders. I think we all have Ole Miss at 8, which is really cool. So I've got Tennessee at number 1, and I don't feel great about it, but you beat Nick Saban. They also have a decent non-conference win at Pitt. They spanked LSU, right? So I think body of work. I know I'm getting a lot of shocking looks
bodied at work.
Body of work. Tennessee is number 1, right? Michigan just has the Penn State win. We're not going to get too excited about that. That said, we are going to get excited about it, and I have them at number 2. I think they move up. I think I'm kind of, my rankings are like a snapshot. Like, I'm a victim of the moment, right? I think Ohio State is better than Michigan, but at this moment in time, based on what we saw, I got to go Michigan. I have Ohio State 3. As I mentioned before, we all have Georgia at 4. I've got Clemson at 5. They've kind of impressed me in that they had a really interesting 4-week stretch here where they played a couple really solid teams, and
On the road,
they
too.
they didn't lose, but in Wake Forest they gave up 50 points. NC State was kind of just like a ho hum 30-20 win. They didn't look super impressive, but they looked pretty tough. And then the Florida State game, Devin, you nailed it. Like, they jumped out early and then they just kind of coasted. And I think Florida State's okay this year. They're not horrible like they used to be, but it just didn't look impressive. So I don't know how to feel about them. They've been taking care of business, but not in a way that really is anything to write home about. I've got TCU at 6. Everything after 5, I just kind of, I don't know, threw it together. I don't feel great about TCU from a defensive standpoint, but I think they can clearly score. I think Max Duggan is maybe one of the best quarterbacks or best players in the country that's just not getting a lot of talk from a Heisman standpoint.
Coach Doug's,
yeah. I've got UCLA at 7. Speaking of quarterbacks that aren't getting a lot of love, I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson's another one that could play himself into the Heisman mix. Ole Miss, as I mentioned, we have all got them at 8.
Our good friend Joe Klatt loves him, by the way.
Friend of the program.
Yeah.
I've got Oregon at number 9. I think there's a chance that Oregon is the best team in the Pac-12, and we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out next week because one of the games is UCLA at Oregon, and I think whoever wins that game might be in the driver's seat because Utah and USC already each have a loss, and UCLA has the win over Utah. And so whoever wins this game, I think, is really going to kind of be in the driver's seat. But I'm just happy that the Pac-12, in my opinion, is back to being respectable. I think there's a really, really good 4-team race out there between USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Utah. And we kind of made fun of Utah a little bit when they got beat by Florida. And I think they just kind of let a week 1 game get away from them. And then they kind of got handled by UCLA a little bit. But for them to turn it around and beat USC in the manner they did, I think Utah's for real. I think they already have 2 losses, but it's a 4-team race. There's 4 teams out there with either 0 or 1 loss in conference. And then number 10, I've got Alabama.
It's where they belong. They're like 6 in the AP.
The AP.
Well, you got.
I know. I'm just saying, like,
you got to punish them a little bit, but I can't put like Syracuse ahead of them or some of these other teams. But they, I mean, say what you want. They have looked vulnerable in a number of games this year. I mean,
they should have lost to Texas.
They should have lost to Texas. They didn't look good against A&M. They looked really good for half of the Arkansas game, and then there was a stretch where Arkansas scored like 21 unanswered points. So they do not look like a vintage Bama side.
They're good, and they're very undisciplined.
I mean, I think if Bryce Young got hurt in the offseason, they might have 3 losses right now. Honestly.
I think if Quinn Ewers doesn't get hurt, they definitely have 2.
And you don't normally say that about a Saban coach team, where Bryce Young, it just feels like he's just carrying them on his back right now.
He's like Greg Jennings.
It's obvious at this point, but like 52 points, you don't see Alabama give up 42 points, rarely even 32 points, but 52. So I think we largely got a lot of similarities in our top 10s with a couple interesting, unique distinctions, but obviously the top 3 are all the same, just in different orders.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
And 4 is Georgia.
And 8 is Ole Miss.
It's because you guys copied me.
Yeah, you're right.
But
next week I might just take exactly what yours is. Just for the fun of it.
I was gonna do that and see if you guys would notice, to be honest.
Just take the aggregate of mine and Zach's. Just add them up and.
Nah, because then you'd have Alabama too high, and I can't put that shit out. We'll move on. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back and do pick'ems. All right, welcome back. So we forgot to do our Penn State pick, the whole point of this podcast, apparently. So I'm on the spot right now. I'm going to go with Penn State 27, Minnesota 21. That's my prediction. I think we win, even though I projected us to lose at the beginning of the season. I just don't think Minnesota has enough to do it in the whiteout. So that's my guess. 27-21. Devin, you're up.
Okay, let me think about this for a second.
No thinking, go gut decision.
I have been going gut. All right, Penn State 31, Minnesota 30.
Ooh.
We went on Pinniger redeems himself in my eyes, wins it at the end.
After
I have been the closest.
Field.
Drew Aller leads us to his victory in his first career start, and yeah, I'm all for it. I was going to change it, so go gut 31-30.
You have been on fire with their guesses lately, so
I wouldn't say on fire, but I've definitely been the closest.
All right, Zach.
I'm going to go 23-16 in favor of Penn State. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I think Minnesota the last couple games hasn't done a lot offensively. I think whether Tanner Morgan is back or not, I think this could come back to haunt me, but I think Penn State's defense is going to bow up a little bit, and they're not going to get gashed in the run game, and Minnesota is going to struggle through the air. I do think it's going to be a relatively tight game, though, because I think Minnesota's pretty solid. I think our flaws that were exposed in the Michigan game aren't going to magically go away. I think we'll be able to, they're not going to be quite as prevalent, obviously, with the difference in talent between Michigan and Minnesota, but I think we'll do just enough offensively. And I think we will see, whether he starts or not, I think we're definitely going to see a good bit of Drew Aller. because I think at this point you got to start playing him more, because if Clifford is injured or if the Ohio State game goes poorly, it's starting to get to the point where he's probably going to start to be pushing for legitimate playing time.
Yeah, we will see if Tanner Morgan Wallen can be PSU proof. There's my joke.
Morgan Wallen. Oh man. Stupid.
Our 200 subscribers will appreciate that one.
Will they though?
Maybe. I don't know.
Guys, we can't keep making that joke when we're adding 100 subscribers a week.
Yeah,
I know, but it makes it even better when maybe one day we make it big. we can laugh at our 1,000 subscribers maybe someday down the road. Somehow we haven't alienated a lot of subscribers yet, but
well, speaking of making it big, an update on the Pickum standings. I'm up to 23-20. I had a decent week last week, went 4-4. Jordan's 21-22, just hovering around 500. And Coach Devin
the same always.
Coach Devin lost a game on us last week, but again, after that early start, I think he'd be happy to be 19-24 and generally in the hunt. Our guest picker Tim went 2-6 last week.
Oof,
pretty rough. And actually, he picked Utah too, so he was like this close to being 1-7, but for that Utah comeback. So I think we got a decent slate of games this week. I don't think quite as good as last week, but there's some good ones in there. So we'll get right into it. 14 Syracuse at 5 Clemson. In the interest of time, is anyone picking Syracuse?
No.
Okay, we got 3 Clemson picks there. Moving on. This one's interesting to me because looking at a line I saw at least earlier today, number 7 Ole Miss is a underdog at LSU, unranked LSU.
What time's the game though?
I believe it's earlier in the day.
I think it's a noon game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely not a night game. It's either noon or 3:30.
All right, give me that Ole Miss.
I'll take Ole Miss.
I'm going with LSU.
You
I
would.
just have a feeling they're going to beat somebody at home at some point. They have to, right?
That's where you're wrong, kiddo.
Or maybe not.
I mean, I would agree. I just don't think Ole Miss is going to be that team. But if not them, then who, right?
So the third game we got here is probably the game of the week. Number 9 UCLA at number 10 Oregon for control of the Pac-12. We'll start with Coach Devin.
Oh, thanks. I did not want that. Oh, man. Gut feeling. I think UCLA is legit. I think DTR is good. But I also think Oregon is solid. I think this game is going to be the best game of the weekend. And I don't think it's going to be close, honestly. I think every other game is going to be like, wow, I wish we were that game. UCLA. Take UCLA.
Zach, who are you going with?
I'm going with Oregon. I said it earlier in the show. I think Oregon has a chance to really surprise. And, they got killed in week 1 against Georgia. And maybe they just didn't show up. Maybe Bo Nix was just haunted by, his SEC demons or something. But Oregon has done a really good job, and they're really running the ball too, which is big for me. So I think I'm with Devin. I think it is going to be a great game, and I think oddly, not something that anyone suspected earlier in the year, but these might be the 2 best teams in the Pac-12 at this point. But I'm going Oregon. I think it's going to be a tight game.
You're an absolute quack if you think I'm going with Bo Nix. Give me UCLA. I'm riding high on them. I mean, they're my West Coast team right now. So Chip Kelly all day. Oh, right now. Yeah. I'm allowed to change.
Another game with 2 ranked teams. We've got the other orange UT at 11 Oklahoma State.
I'll go first because horns down all day.
Yeah.
Give me Oklahoma State. Pistol Pete.
If anyone's ever watched this podcast, you already know what I'm picking.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State by 1 million.
How are they 6-point favorites on the road? Get out of here.
Yeah.
Okay.
What a clown.
So this is the 3rd straight game with the 2 of you have picked together, and I'm going the opposite direction. I'm taking Texas. That was a brutal loss for Oklahoma State. I love Mike Gundy. That was
Clearly
a brutal loss. I love Mike Gundy, but you know what I
Can't even
love?
pick him.
You know who else I love is Quinn Ewers. Texas has been really good when he plays. You can shake your head and make all the faces you want. They lost to Texas Tech. He didn't play. They got hurt when when he got hurt. Texas was leading against Alabama. I think they're a different team when he's back there. I'm going Texas. So
You better hope he doesn't get hurt.
by the middle of this Saturday slate of games, you guys might have surpassed me in the standings, or maybe I'll have just locked it in big time, because we've got 3 straight games there where
Yeah,
the 2 of you
not great.
Give me that oil money.
Old T Boone Pickens. So here's another interesting one. Not a major game as far as national implications, but for us Big Ten fans, it's a good one. Purdue at Wisconsin.
How is Wisconsin favored?
Because Purdue hasn't beaten Wisconsin since you were in 10th grade.
Since Nam.
Since Drew Brees. It's been a long time,
But
especially
Wisconsin
in Madison.
is terrible this year.
They've kind of stabilized a little bit since they fired their coach.
Hold.
So I'll go first. I am not going against history. I'm taking Wisconsin.
I want to go with Purdue, but I feel like I'm giving you too many points. I don't think we've agreed on a single one. And because of that,
the Clemson game almost doesn't count, but yeah.
Because of that, I'm going with Purdue.
Love it.
All right, so I also was going to go Purdue, but I can't. I've had the same as Jordan every pick, so I'm Wisconsin. It is.
Oh, you just say Purdue.
Nope, Wisconsin. Purdue wins. I think Purdue actually wins, but
I
for
really
the game,
do think
if you follow Purdue, they stumbled against Syracuse, and then they've been taking care of business lately. Kind of a squeaker against Nebraska, so I feel like they're just the setting is just right for Purdue to derp their way to a loss here.
It's AOC. He's like the best quarterback in the Big Ten. That's what I was told
by that other podcast.
Yeah, I mean they're a great team. So is Northwestern. But okay, here's another one I think we can dispense of quickly. Number 24, Mississippi State at number 6, Alabama. Hands up if you're taking more cowbell.
Give me Alabama.
Not so fast, my friend.
You're not taking
Bama. It is. Bama. It is.
You're out of your mind if you're not taking Alabama after a loss. Like
Nick Saban will have the boys ready to play.
Mississippi State covers though.
Yes.
Yeah, I think 21 points is a lot for I think a pretty solid, competent.
I think they lose by 17
or 20
or 20. Yeah, because
21 is a lot of points.
They're gonna miss an extra point.
For a Bama defense that's not really stonewalling anybody this year. I mean, so probably the second best game of the week in my opinion, and really a good analog to the UCLA Oregon game, because I think this will decide who's in the driver's seat in the Big 12. Number 17, Kansas State at 8, TCU.
I really thought you were talking about Boise Air Force.
So did I. That's why I was giving you some crazy faces.
Sorry, I may have gotten them out of order there, but
I was just very confused.
Huge game out in the Mountain West we got coming up. We
got to make Devin's got to pick first.
No, I don't want to pick first. Well, you gave me the 2 hard ones to go first. All right, K-State it is. K-State.
Zach, who are you going with?
I am going with K-State. I think Adrian Martinez is the real deal. Deuce Vaughn. I think Kansas State's going to win the Big 12.
I think K-State is everything you said, but they're going to drop a big Deuce Vaughn this week. Give me them Horned Frogs.
All right.
Or as some people refer to them, the Horny Christians.
Try to keep it PG-13 here. Last
I
game.
shouldn't watch this.
Biggest game of the week. This may decide the Mountain West Mountain Division. Boise State at Air Force.
It's such a tough call because
I'm going Air Force.
You have blue turf versus the wild blue yonder. So on principle alone, I feel like I shouldn't take Air Force. But I am going to be flying on some Air Force vehicles in the near future. So give me that Air Force. I don't want to risk anything.
So my brother-in-law is going to be mad about this. I'm going to go Boise. I I
Oh, he
think
hates
that-
Idaho or something, or
No, he's in the Air Force.
I know. It's
Yeah, he hates Idaho. I don't know. I couldn't tell you one player on either of those teams. So I couldn't even tell you their coaches probably at this point. Kyle Willingham.
Who is Boise's coach? I'm not
Ted
sure.
Williams still play for Air Force?
Interestingly, they fired their offensive coordinator earlier in the year, and their quarterback just like on the spot transferred, went into the portal.
I'm out.
Like I'm done.
Oh yeah.
Who was
So-
the last coach? Here's a question. You guys probably know this, but who's the last coach of Boise State?
Leave it in the comments if you know the answer.
Devin, do you know?
I don't. I'm so bad at names.
I think he may even be the next coach at Boise State.
I can picture him, but I don't.
He may be
I'm bad at names.
the previous coach of Auburn.
Haskins.
Head Harris. How do you say his name?
Brian Harsin.
Brian Harsin.
Person.
Harsin.
Just to
Harsin?
wrap up, it should be another good slate.
Harsin?
We've got a number of good games, and we've got a number of interesting. So Devin has
No shot. I have no shot.
There's a nice breakdown. We've got a nice mix here where like it could be my lead just gets magnified or it just all evaporates because there's a number of games right out of the chute where it's the two of you and I'm on the other side.
I said I was gonna pick the favorites this week, and then I didn't. I don't think I picked like any of the favorites.
You got a couple there, but
I did say I was going to pick every underdog, and I almost did, other than Clemson and Bama.
Yeah,
I mean, you pick 8 games. There's guaranteed to be 2 or 3 upsets in any 8 games you pick. I mean, it's a matter of finding them. Like,
yeah. Well,
Okay.
we shall.
Super Dogs?
see. Oh yeah, Super Dogs. Crap. What was my Super Dog? Kansas at. I forget. who
Baylor.
Kansas-
Your
Kansas
super
at
dog
Baylor.
Kansas at Baylor.
Yeah, because I'm sick of picking Baylor. I actually burned my T-shirt, so in solidarity, give me Kansas, even with the backup. I think
I
they're 6.5
have-
point underdogs. So
I have gone into the ACC for mine, and I'm taking Duke University over Miami by 9.5 points.
Ooh. In basketball,
Yeah. I always pick the Blue Devils in basketball.
well, you just like the ACC so much. You're ACC
In basketball.
ACC homer.
In basketball.
So I'm going to stick in the same state, a little off the radar, but UCF is favored by 5, Central Florida at East Carolina. And I'm rolling with
Pirates.
I'm rolling with the East Carolina Pirates to pull the upset. The other game that I see that
UCF.
I don't consider it a super dog because it's only 3 points, but somehow Rutgers is favored by 3 at home against Indiana, which I don't get. Not that Indiana's been great, but I think they've been
That's Rutgers.
semi-competent.
Vegas knows.
Also, Ohio State minus 29 over Iowa.
I mean,
Is it
Penn-
interesting?
or-
Because Iowa, like if Iowa had any semblance of offense, they could cover that and just like hold the ball, play slow, and their defense isn't going to give up like 50, but their
When they
offense,
go 3 and
Beat
out,
30-0.
yeah, it's going to be an ugly one.
Big Noon, the home of great games,
the home of Michigan football.
except for this week and next week. Then it's Ohio State football.
So that they traded off. I don't want to play with you anymore. That was Joe Klatt and Gus Johnson.
Good friend of the podcast.
Like, for the love of God, can we cover someone else other than Michigan? Are they in studio for those games? Do you guys know?
No,
Like, are they?
Joel and Gus, no, they're at the stadium.
they're
the
at the
stadium?
they're at
Yep.
the stadium now. Ever since COVID, just that year.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because the whole like pregame crew with Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart and Brady Quinn.
The
Which- did you-
$5 Reggie Bush bag.
Did you see
Great
that
commercial.
that pregame made me laugh so hard because Leinart and Reggie Bush were in like 3 jackets and everybody else was just like in a suit coat, like Urban Meyer,
Yeah, they
Brady
acted
Quinn.
like it was like the winter tundra.
I know, but that's because
It was
they're
like
from
50
Southern
degrees.
California. Like it just made me laugh.
I am glad that they did the right thing and decided to give him the pub burger back.
Yeah, they did the right thing.
Did the right thing. Here's the real question. Here's the real pick'em. Wendy's Reggie Bush commercials or Dr. Pepper Fansville?
Fansville.
Depends on the Fansville commercial, but
I think all the Fansville ones are
some
hilarious.
of the Fansville ones are really
The
good.
one where the kid goes to Coastal. It's an all-timer.
All timer. I think the Bryce Young one's really funny too.
Yeah,
He's
it's a little
my
weird. It's
mom
a little
now.
weird. There's some
It is weird.
implications.
I guess you're right.
There's some
You're right.
implications there. I do actually the best. They need to bring back the Dr. Pepper guy, the stadium guy, who created the college football playoff.
Yeah, he was a good one too.
Yeah.
Banana Tech, overrated.
That's a classic too.
Ice cold Dr. Pepper here. But yeah, that's the real pick'em. So make sure to like and subscribe if you guys like Dr. Pepper or Wendy's. Or Big Noon Kickoff. But I
Or
think
just if you're watching this, just like and subscribe.
if you made it
That's
to
something.
this far, you gotta give us a like and subscribe. Like it's in the contract. You signed with YouTube when you signed in. But I think that's all I got. I am excited. This week's probably not as many great games, but there are a lot of good games to watch. So we shall see. We got the late night Penn State game. So TBD where I may be at this point next week when we finish the instant reaction. But hopefully we get the win. It might be a late night for us. So make sure to tune in for the instant reaction of Penn State versus Minnesota, the whiteout game. 8:30 start Eastern.
7:30.
7:30. Okay.
I think the only home night game they're gonna have all year.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the word. So that's all good stuff. That's all I got. You guys have anything else you want to sign off with?
Nope.
All right. That's all we got. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching the Nittany No Huddle podcast.
Check us out on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.
Podcasts are posted weekly on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss one of our new shows.